administration. Well, joining us from Washington is Varsha Koduvayur, Senior Research Analyst at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Varsha, great to have you back. We discussed this trilateral summit in Jerusalem. Let's talk a little about this one in Abu Dhabi, what the relationship of it, the meeting between, of course, the leaders of Bahrain and the UAE, and another leader who really hasn't been much of a factor yet in this whole Israel Gulf breakthrough, King Abdullah of Jordan. I mean, what is the message being sent by having that as the same day as the one in Jerusalem?
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back here with you. Yeah, I think the timing of it is definitely interesting. And if anything, I would say that it's almost a little hopeful in the sense that, as you pointed out, Jordan has been sat on the sidelines. Even worse than that, there were some tensions earlier this year with Jordan suggesting they might even scrap its deal with Israel. So I think what the Israeli, Bahraini, and the Israeli Emirati deals have done is re-inject a sense of renewed vitality and a sense of renewed hopefulness into the region and into possible rapprochement between Israel and other Arab states. The Bahrain and UAE deals very clearly say that they want to build comprehensive peace and people-to-people relations. And I think it's that particular latter point where not just Jordan's deal with Israel, but also Egypt's deal with Israel has fallen remarkably short of expectations. So this trilateral meeting going on in Abu Dhabi today, it might spur the Jordanians to themselves rejuvenate their peace deal with Israel. Certainly, I think that Bahrain and the UAE are poised to play that sort of role.
Right, maybe warming up that cold peace Israel has with Jordan and Egypt. Varsha, let's talk about both of these summits, the timing in relation to another event, or let's say another development that is unfolding, and that is the transition from a Trump presidency to a Biden administration. In fact, the summit in Jerusalem today coming just a day after Prime Minister Netanyahu finally acknowledged Joe Biden as the president-elect. Do you think also here there's perhaps trying to set some groundwork or establish some framework before that transition comes in the United States?
I think that there is a genuine sense that this is the time to strike in terms of expanding the circle of peace in the region. President-elect Biden has already made statements suggesting that he's very supportive of these deals being struck. And I think that a Biden administration would also, for the interest of the region and for the interest of U.S. security interests in the region as well, would also want to continue the progress that has been done. So I see this as a possibility for the current administration to capitalize on the deals that have already been set in motion, and most importantly, to capitalize on the momentum that we're seeing right now. I want to take it back to the deals between Bahrain and Israel and the UAE and Israel. We started from scratch. There were no agreements. I mean, there were barely formal relations between these countries, and there were, of course, a lot of under-the-table ties. But I think it's quite remarkable that within the span of just a few months, a couple of months, really, we have built so many of the frameworks necessary to establish and grow formal, deep, lasting bilateral ties. So I think this shows the true momentum and the true willpower that we see in the region right now between some Gulf states and Israel in wanting to establish lasting diplomatic bilateral relations.
Right, and of course, one other big factor we didn't mention, and we don't have time to get into deeper, is Iran, as it, of course, steps up its nuclear program. And in fact, later in the program, we'll be looking at those developments. Certainly, they also are a strong factor in the timing of both of these summits today in Jerusalem and Abu Dhabi. Varsha Koduvayur from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, thank you for joining us again on The Rundown.